All right, welcome to On the Spot with Barney and Gizz. This is Gizz and... Wait, who the hell is Barney? Who the hell are you?
Hey guys, it's Vish here. I'm taking over the show.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
That is very true. Don't listen to what Gizz is saying. I'm commandeering the show. It's now mine.
Okay, I was not aware of that. You can have our 9 viewers if you want. So Barney's applied for leave, and I've sort of accepted his request, and he's in Europe for a month, but the show must go on. So thank you, Vish, for coming on the show.
I'm on it.
And I'm very, very excited about delving into some things that I find really interesting about you.
Cool.
Let's see where this conversation goes.
Yeah, that's it.
Maybe we'll start with money and wealth. I think you're probably surprised that I've suddenly got an interest in money and wealth, because it's not something I talked about for many years.
Oh, no, but I'm very happy to see you go down this path. I think money for millennials these days is very important. And it's best to start early because, as you know, the power of compounding, the earlier you start, the bigger rewards you get in the end. So happy to talk about finance with you. Everyone around me knows that I love money and I love talking about it. So yeah,
love it.
Let's have a chat.
Well, let's have a very in-depth chat. So, I mean, you had a very pertinent point about time. I think that's something that scared me and got me into it, because although I still have all my other stuff that I value. I figured if I was too late, if I got into my mid-40s and 50s and then I started putting a value on wealth, there's no time for that wealth to compound if I wasn't doing X, Y, Z. So I guess let's set the scene. What does money mean to you? I think you had some interesting views. You've talked a few things about it. So
yeah, I guess money means many different things to many different people. For me, I guess it also means many things, but a thought that I've been having recently is that money for me means time. So if I save money, that's also time that I've gotten back from my life, essentially. And the earlier that I have money in my bank account, that's more time that I have available to me in the future. And that's purely due to the compounding effect. So money that I have today is worth more than money I have tomorrow. So what that means for me and the way I treat
because of inflation? Money, is that what you mean?
Yeah, inflation is like a hidden tax on our wealth. So when we're saving money and the money sits in our bank account, the value of our money is actually eroding. But I guess this ties into the broader concept of the time value of money, and that I guess inflation comes into it, but also you want to be earning a higher rate of return than your inflation, and that's when you earn that return, that's when the compounding kicks in. And compounding, it's actually an exponential phenomenon. So each year you're earning not just like in an addition type way.
It's not linear.
It's not linear, that's right. So you're not adding on in a linear form, you're multiplying in an exponential form. So each year, say you earn a rate of return of 7%. So each year your wealth is growing by you say you have 100k this year, then next year you got 100k times 1.07.
Yep. So
and
107.
Right. Yep. And then the following year you have 107 times 1.07 again. It's not 107 plus 7. It's not a linear relationship. Yep. And the thing is, humans, we think in linear terms. So we don't have a natural grasp of what it means for something to have an exponential relationship. So when we think, I need this much money in order to retire, we don't actually realize how how achievable that is because of the power of compounding. We think in linear terms, and so we see this, whatever number it is for you, we have this massive number probably that we dream of having so that we can retire one day, and we think, oh wow, I don't think I can ever get that amount of money. But if you actually look into things such as compound interest, and you do your calculations, you will realize that it is actually possible within one's lifetime, and maybe even a very short portion of one's lifetime, that they can actually achieve that number. Obviously it's easier said than done, but it's also
simple-ish, but not easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's not impossible is what I'm trying to say. Most people, I guess, they are conditioned by what society has told them, what their parents have lived. And we all, I guess, well, even in the law, it's written that, you must retire by age 65. And here in Australia, your super is only accessible once you retire. Or there might be some special cases where you can access it earlier, but for the most part, it's near the retirement age. I'm not sure what the actual age is, but
it's irrelevant to you anyway.
Well, I mean, that's the
plan,
point.
Right?
The point I was trying to make is that most people would think, oh, I have to wait till 65 or whatever it is in order to retire, and we think it's so far off that we have to wait till that moment. We have to wait. We have to work 40 years in order to retire or have financial freedom. But yeah, so I've done my calculations as well as all these other people on the internet who are talking about this phenomenon called FIRE, financial independence, retire early. And it's like a movement, and it's really just it's really simple. You just have to follow a few rules, I guess.
You happy to? So okay, let's summarize. So that's some really good stuff. So essentially, for you, one of the major things that money is time. So it seems like you value time as a currency very highly.
Yeah, definitely.
You speak very highly of compounding and to start early. There's these classic, I guess, patterns of the wealthy that people constantly reiterate, but for whatever reason, whether it's busy lifestyle, not enough time to educate yourself, the society pressures, you don't take the time to invest learning about that stuff as an example, and then you may not be able to access that.
Right, everyone has different interests and priorities, and people are busy, they can't invest all this time in learning about finances and what it is that's required in order to reach their financial goals. Some people, maybe they are in denial, or they're ashamed, they don't want to delve into that area of their life, so they just sort of cruise along, I guess.
Even from my own biases, I always thought it's more noble to, like, having a lot of money is not necessarily a noble or virtuous thing to do.
Right.
My views have changed dramatically since, but that's something that I think subconsciously has held me back. Perhaps if I think the way I think now, maybe I would have managed my money. I mean, it's just it's still early days, but would have managed my money a bit differently. But I mean, I think for me, I had to be ready for it. There had to be certain things that happened in my life.
Right.
For me, there was a period, maybe 6 months, where financially we were a little strained, and I didn't like that feeling. So I just figured I'm not going to let this happen again. Right. So that was my little trigger.
Yeah.
But I guess, do you have a point in your life where you sort of felt like, this working 9 to 5? I mean, everyone talks about it. This doesn't work out. This can't be it. This has to be something else.
Yeah, I mean, I think so I was always a very studious student. Like, I would put in the hard yards and study quite hard, and that was since year 12 throughout uni. And what I liked about it is that it was a pure meritocracy. Like, you put in the work and you'll see a directly proportional result. And then when I started applying for jobs, I realized, it's not really so much about your fundamental value in terms of your skills. It's more about how you can actually sell the skills. In essence, for me, it seemed like you had to put up a facade that someone else would think is valuable. But in actual terms, it might not actually, there might not actually be any strong fundamentals behind, what it is they're valuing. So,
are you saying there's like a fake it to make it sort of?
100%, yeah. I mean, in the corporate world, it's not really. I mean, there's that saying, "It's not what you know, it's who you know." Just things along those lines. It sort of disillusioned me. I didn't feel it was a pure meritocracy. And I guess from that point on, I didn't really see myself having to slog it out for 40 years. And I mean, even it wasn't just the corporate environment that made me feel that way. I just feel like there's so much more to life to experience than just to work. I mean, that's a whole nother philosophy and story we can talk about.
But it's important, isn't it? I guess it sets the context of why. That's part of your why. There's 100%. Probably more to it.
There's so many reasons, and
that's
it's all tied together. So
fascinating.
One thing I wanted to add was just, you said you had only weighed. I mean, you had to come to a certain point before you started looking into your finances, and I just want to stress that it's never too late. There's that saying. Yeah. Interesting. The best time to plant a tree was yesterday, or 20 years ago. Sorry. But the second best time is today.
Yes.
So it's never too late to start.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. Okay. So do you want to delve a bit deeper? So that's sort of the context, but I'd like to know some specifics. Of course, some things we won't talk about because money is a very personal thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's another topic as well. Like, why are we so ashamed of talking about money? I mean, I know I have that bias myself, but I should question it. Like,
why is it for you?
Why am I uncomfortable talking about money? I think it's just that no one else does. So I would be putting myself out there. I'd be quite vulnerable, Often when you share something personal about yourself, you expect that to be reciprocated by whoever it is that you're communicating with. So, I guess it's a gamble. You put out this personal information about yourself out there, and you don't, you fear judgment and all these other things, I guess, that come with talking about personal things. But I mean, I guess the question that we're trying to answer is, why is it personal? Why is it?
I mean, partly as well, like, I think there's knowing for the sake of knowing. Like, it's, if I want to say someone that earns X amount of money, $100,000, let's say, it's one thing knowing just so I know how much you earn. That's pointless.
Right.
There's who cares? Even if you earn $1 million, it shouldn't really matter. But if you can learn something from it, or the other person can gain, and that you can give something back, then that's my sort of threshold. But if it's just for the sake of almost like gossip and comparing, I don't see the point. But I agree with you. It's other people are personal as well, so.
I mean, I get. I think you just struck the nail on the head. Like, it is about gossip, essentially.
Yeah. It's just like, that person earns more than me. Oh, stuff that guy.
It's human nature. I think that's what it comes down to. But when you think about it consciously or rationally, it doesn't really make sense, I guess.
I mean, on your point, maybe we should not do what the rest of society does, but this is a very personal thing.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, we're both humans, right?
Yeah,
we still have
that's right.
inherent biases and, irrationalities. So,
yeah. Okay.
Even though we can talk about it like this.
Yeah, it's
hard.
different. It's different. Yeah. Okay, so let's have a chat about. We don't have to go into percentages or absolute numbers, but just the fundamentals behind how you handle your money if you're comfortable. You know, or your possible ways of generating passive income and essentially working hard, earning money, and then sending your money to get a job and earn money for you.
Yeah, I mean that's essentially it, and I guess the crux of it is understanding that like the way to build your wealth in order to retire early, if that is your goal, is to essentially maximize your savings rate. So we can go to either extremes of the savings rate scale in order to make a point. So let's
do some numbers just so I find it a bit easier to conceptualize. Let's say $100,000 comes into your account.
Yeah.
Well, when you say savings rate, do you mean like how much of that you put away? So you're paying yourself first.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So your savings rate, say you at the end of the year have 50K in your bank.
Yeah.
Then that's 50%. You've managed to save 50% of your income.
Sure.
So that's what I mean by savings rate. And so say you're earning 100K and throughout the year you have zero expenses. Maybe someone else is paying for all your daily living needs.
So
and
classic
everything else.
Student at home,
right.
mooching off parents. The
exactly.
dream.
The dream, yeah.
The absolute dream, yep.
But let's say you can sustain this for life, for the rest of your life, such that you can retire early. So essentially you're saving 100% of your income, so that you have 100% savings rate. So at that point, you're free to retire today.
What do you mean?
Because you don't have any expenses.
Oh, okay.
So on the other side of your savings rate,
but you still have to work. No? Did I miss something?
You don't have to work. No.
How long have you saved?
Because all your needs are taken care of.
Oh, I see.
All your expenses are being paid.
What a fascinating way to look at it. Okay, right? Continue.
It's so simple. And so say we go to the other end of the spectrum and you're spending all the money that's coming in. You don't have anything in your bank account.
Yeah.
Well, if you were to stop working, well, how are you going to fund your lifestyle? You can't.
Sure.
So at that point you have a 0% savings rate, and you'll have to continue working for the rest of your life because whatever comes in, you're spending.
Like literally the rest of your living life.
Yeah.
At that spectrum. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
And so, if you see both of these examples and you can compare the two, you'll see that you want to maximize your savings rate in order to retire early. So obviously it's not
or minimize
feasible.
your lifestyle.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So like there are two sides of the same coin, right? So one, you increase your savings rate, and by doing that might imply that you're reducing your it does imply that you're reducing your spending rate. So essentially, in order to maximize your savings rate, what you have to do is cut down on your expenses.
Okay.
Or I guess increase the amount of income that's coming in.
Sure. Yep.
So those are the two main ways of increasing your savings rate.
So it's a pretty simple equation, really.
It is, 100%, yeah.
Okay, sure.
So you can actually do the numbers and put it in a calculator, see what your savings rate is, see how long it will take if you assume that you're going to continue saving at that rate. Yeah. How long it will take you given a certain rate of return.
I think just for the listeners, one calculator that I like using is the ASIC one, the compound interest calculator, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Gives a reasonable idea. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, that's good. I like to use that one. There's another one I think called Net Worthify, And that goes straight to the point. Like, it's not just a generic compound interest calculator like the ASIC one, but it's focused on it'll give you the number of years before you can actually retire. So
wow, net worthify.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll check that out.
Yeah. So there's a whole movement based around this way of living, I guess. And I guess that I said way of living, and that sort of triggered some other thoughts. It really is like living so that you can maximize your savings rate. It does affect other areas of your life. Like, it is a very all-encompassing type of
it's a
way
lifestyle.
of living. It's a lifestyle. Yeah, that's what I would. It's a good way of putting it. So, yeah. So if you're cutting down your expenses, that means you are, by definition, cutting out certain parts of your lifestyle. And I guess that's a whole nother discussion about
I guess you
how
can
things are these days.
perhaps sum that up in 2 words: delayed gratification.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I guess that's a very important part of
everything.
How you
Every single part of your life.
Yeah, I mean, there's all these other aspects to saving money, like discipline. You don't, and you want to live your life consciously as well. So you don't want to be wasting your money. Well, I mean, I guess that's what a lot of people do. In my opinion, is that they don't really take a look at where their finances are going, and they may be spending money needlessly for things. There's that saying, you spend money on worthless things to impress other people. I'm butchering the saying, but you get the point. Like, most people spend on things frivolously, and they might only provide a temporary happiness, but it's not really enriching their life, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, how many, we could talk about this for hours, let's be honest. So, but that's a different discussion in itself. But I think, I mean, it's the complete opposite: immediate gratification, each to their own, whatever people's goals are. For me, I think I've always been pretty cheap in certain areas of my life, like things that I know that won't bring me too much happiness. Technology as an example, various gadgets, blah blah blah. But then I'll spend extravagantly on like flying to see my family in interstate or whatever. So yeah, conscious spending has become a big thing for me.
Yeah, that's right. Like, even though you're cutting down on your lifestyle in order to increase your savings rate, doesn't mean you can't do the things that you actually enjoy. It's just about identifying those things. It
can actually focus you. You might enjoy your life more, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. So you end up spending money on things that you actually value instead of things that don't really enrich your life. So, yeah, you're right. It can focus you. And, like, you mentioned delayed gratification earlier. That ties into the power of compounding, because essentially if you prevent yourself from spending money today, then in the future that money that you save will have grown exponentially, and so say 10-20 years into the future you'd actually be in a better position than if you were to have spent that money today.
That's so interesting. That 10-20 years. I think this is another reason I like getting into wealth, is it teaches you. I know it will teach me the skills that'll help me in other areas of my life, like discipline, patience, delayed gratification. I mean, waiting 10 years probably not enough.
Yeah.
For most, right?
Right.
Waiting 20, maybe 25, 30 years for something to come.
Yeah.
Even now that we've sort of a bit more wary of our savings, there's always like a little thing saying like, man, that person's like going to XYZ, or he's spending on that, and I'm at home eating rice and curry. Like,
are you secretly talking about Barney yet?
Yeah, Barney. I mean, yeah, he's in Europe and I'm still here. I have not moved just like 1 or 2 suburbs away today.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, not that Bali shouldn't go to Europe, but it's just, it plays with your head.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
Yeah, I find it like...
It's human nature to be short-term focused. And we're at the end of the day, we're just animals. And I don't think any other animal is thinking in the long term. And it's hard to think, in terms of decades. So yeah, I get it. It's a constant struggle. Your rational self is fighting against your, what is it, your limbic brain? Is that what it is, doctor?
Oh, I don't know. Thanks for putting me on the spot, bro.
Your reptile brain, whatever that is.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any, let's say someone's listening and they may want to retire, whatever that means. That means different things to different people. But they want to retire, like say at a certain age. What do you think is like the first few steps? What are the first few steps you took, if you could share that?
So yeah, I mean, if I were to give anyone advice, I would say first find the best online savings account that you can. Find the one with the highest savings rate. Because I think it's an achievable goal, and it's something that's easily done. So that's a great way to start.
Would that generally be an online bank?
Yeah. Online banks have lower fees, lower expenses.
Lower overheads. Therefore lower fees.
So they're able to give you a higher savings interest rate.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, interest rates for savers aren't really that great at the moment, but it's a good starting point. And then once you get to that point and you're comfortable, signing up to a bank account, transferring your money over, and you don't have a emotional attachment to your bank. After that point, then you can look into investing into things that have slightly higher risk, but also have a slightly higher return. So that I would say, probably entail investing in the stock market, or possibly even property. I think those are the two main vehicles most people look for in terms of getting return on their investments. I mean, it's all dependent on your personal circumstances and what your personal preferences are. So
is that online savings account, is that separate to the money that you invest in stocks, for example? Or are you saving it and then investing, saving and investing?
So I have some savings set aside, sort of as an emergency fund.
Good. Is that a specific, how did you work out how much? Is it like 6 months of your living expenses or something? Or?
Yeah. I think something like that, 6 to 12 months. And then the rest, so like every month, I'll put in some money into my stocks. So in terms of stocks, like Warren Buffett, the greatest investor in the world, his piece of advice to layman investors such as myself and the majority of people is to just invest in a broad-based index fund.
Yeah.
So what that is a company such as Vanguard or BlackRock, one of these massive investment institutions. They'll buy up, say we're investing in the S&P 500 index fund. So what they'll do is they'll buy up shares in each of those 500 companies that make up that index in proportion to how large they are relative to the other companies. So essentially it's like owning 500 companies worth of stock, but you just need to buy one thing. So you buy this one index fund and you're instantly diversified across 500 of America's highest biggest companies. Yeah. And
generally, my understanding, I don't know too much about index funds, as opposed to what I've just read, but it generally tracks the market. So that's right. Yeah, that's the idea behind an index fund, is to track the market. And so you might have heard that
it's very hard for investors to beat the market, and what that means is getting a return that's higher than actually the index. So there are
So that's like passive investing versus
right.
actively investing. Yeah,
that's right. So active investors, they'll try and buy and sell or look into particular companies, and they might concentrate on part of their investments based on their research, and they try and beat the market rate.
Yeah.
And research has shown that it's very hard for these active investment managers to actually beat the market, and due to their higher fees. So they charge maybe 1 to 2% in fees for the active their work, their hard work in trying to find these investments that can actually beat the market. Whereas these passive investment funds, there's really not that much work that's required, so they are able to offer it to you at very low fees.
Love it. Yep.
And because of the power of compounding, just as your rate of return compounds, well, expenses every year also compound as well. Yeah. So 1 to 2% might sound like a small amount, but when you compound that every year, it actually adds up quite a bit. So you're actually losing a fair chunk of your investment returns to fees.
And on that note, parallel to that, I mean, something I learnt is the superannuation, and trying to find a fund with lower fees, because it's the same thing. It adds up and it compounds, and it costs you potentially tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars by the time you retire at 65-ish. Well,
right.
Maybe it's irrelevant. See, maybe Vish will have, when he's 65, he'll just have a lump sum ready, but he'll be, probably won't even be in the country. Okay, so so my friend Vish, I just want to thank you. That was great. That was great. We've had a few chats like this, which has probably surprised you, but I've really enjoyed it, and I think we've brushed the surface. Maybe we'll call it. Do you have any closing remarks? Anything that you want to say?
Wow, you have put me on the spot.
Funnily enough, that's the name of our.
Well, you don't say. Yeah, I mean, I guess for anyone starting out, I guess my advice would be to look into getting a savings account that actually has a respectable savings rate, and not one that one of these big four commercial banks will give you, because at the end of the day, they don't really have your best interests in their hands. So it's up to you to actually put in some effort and find solutions that work for you.
Love it. I guess from my point of view, I just want to acknowledge you. I think it's I like a lot of what you're saying. I wish you all the best, and when you do retire, and I know you will, because I've known you for a very long time, and you're very focused and determined and disciplined. Make sure that I'm one of the first 10 to give you a hug.
Done deal.
Very good. Thank you, Vish. So this is Gizz, and Barney is probably in Spain or something. So